Okay, so today we're going to try and get these headlights back to new as we possibly can. First thing to do is get them nice and clean. So a decent microfiber cloth and some soapy water, and that's it. And give them a good clean. Get all those little bugs and all those little bits of rubbish off the headlights, especially if you've been for a run on the motorway or something and you've been mass murdering all the insects flying around, all the flies. Okay. You just keep going until it feels nice and smooth and there's no more little bits of dead flies and whatever on there. And usually if you do this by hand, you can feel whatever's on there still, but that feels nice and smooth. So that's done now, I think. Okay, so now that it's nice and clean, we can dry it off. And also you're drying off around the sides because we're going to be masking off the bodywork next, so that needs to be nice and dry as well. Otherwise your masking tape's just going to peel off straight away. Now we've lifted the bonnet. That will save you having to mask, and that will save that bodywork, but obviously still mask because you've got the rubber seal there and all the other trim. So once it's nice and dry, let's get the masking tape. We're using the 3M kit, very popular and very commonly found on Amazon and eBay and stuff. So not a bad price. Got everything you need in one kit, which is always good. I've got some decent masking tape in there, which is good. So you want to get this laid on nice and tight. Okay, and then we just carry on onto the rubber seal. You can do this in little strips. You don't need to do it in one big strip. It's better to do it in little strips and get it nice and tight rather than trying to do a big bit. Yep, so this little tool helps to get the masking tape right into the gap, so it's not in the way and doesn't get in the way when you start polishing. It's all out of the way. You could do 2 layers because that just makes sure that you're not going to burn through the tape itself, but this is really good tape, so I think we'll leave it at 1 layer and everything's out of the way. Plus, when you're actually polishing, you don't need to go all the way over because you can keep it away from the edge anyway, but this is extra security for your bodywork. And now we're ready to start polishing. Okay, now that we've got the masking done, we now move on to the sanding section, sanding time. So open the kit and you'll get one of these special attachments that go onto the drill and a range of different grit sanding papers. So we have a different selection. So we've got 800 grit, 500 grit, 500 grit, and basically that's it. 500 and 800 grit. 800 is obviously less abrasive and the 500 is slightly more abrasive. So we start with the more abrasive grit and then finish off with the less abrasive. So let's get the 500 grit loaded up. Right, so we've got some 500 grit here. Pop that onto the special drill attachment, and that goes straight on to the drill. Okay. Our high mileage DeWalt, well used. This is well used. This is okay. Gets a nice coating of soapy water on there, and it needs, you want to keep that nice and wet as well, because that reduces the chance of you actually over sanding or burning through the plastic, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Starting with the slow speed, so get it right down, lowest speed setting, lowest power setting, and just gently just sand it evenly across the surface, even pressure all across, all the way around. There we go, all the way across, even pressure. Okay, that's the first pass. Let's get some more soapy water. You can see it's just removing that yellowness straight away. Okay. Making sure you just go over the whole surface evenly, because you don't want to overdo it in one place and underdo it somewhere else. Go evenly across. There we go. There across. Nice even pattern. There we go. That's better. And then you can get up and down as well. Making sure you get good coverage all around. There we go. And that's starting to dry up now, so I'm going to get some more water on that. Lubrication is important to keep the surface clean, because you don't want too much of that gunk that's coming off. You don't want that building up on the surface. I'm going to keep that nice and clean, and sandpaper. Okay, so let's see what it looks like now after a few passes with the 500 grit. Let's see. Okay, that's all wiped off. Let's give it another wipe, and then we can dry it off, and we'll see that it's, hopefully it's even. There's no high spots, low spots. Should have an even glaze across it now. So it looks worse probably now to begin. In the beginning it'll get worse before it gets better. Okay, so now we're moving on to 800 grit, which is slightly finer grit than before, and as you can see, nice and even frosting all over, which is what you want. Keep it nice and even, and that's what we're looking for, and we can get started with the 800 grit now. So get that again soaked. Plenty of soapy water on there, That will help with keeping everything nice and even and smooth. You don't overdo it in certain places and underdo it in other places. It has to be even. That's the key. Okay, I'll get this one. Okay, that is now drying off, so we'll stop there and clean it off, see what it looks like. Once again, we're looking for an even glaze. Doesn't look too bad. I'm just using a dry cloth to get it all dried off nicely so we can see how we're getting on. Okay, that's good. I'm happy with that. Even. I think we'll probably give it another pass. Give it okay. So just give that a second to dry off. And yes, that's quite a nice even looking glaze. Not as bad as the last one. And the yellowness is gone. So there's no yellowness now. It's all white. Okay, once we're done with the 800, we can then, and it's a nice even glaze, we can then move on to the 3000, which is very, very fine. That should take out all the last remaining scratches. If you see any coarse or heavy scratching on there, you'll need to carry on with the 800 until all the sort of heavier scratches have gone and it's really quite smooth with just very fine scratching visible. Then you can move on to the 3000, which will take out the fine scratching even further. So once again, let's get plenty of soapy water on there. Let's get it well and truly soaked and crack on. Okay, that's starting to dry off now, so we'll leave it there and check it out, see what it's looking like. Once again, soapy water, microfiber cloth. Let's clean it off, see what it looks like. Okay, I mean, straight away, you know, after that pass, you can see that is just a significant improvement. Wow. I mean, that is just that one, that has made a huge difference, seriously. Okay, so that was the second pass with the 3000 grit. I'm just going to soap it down before I wipe it off, and let's see how the progress is going. Okay, and let's dry it off. I mean, it just feels so smooth immediately. Should still be frosting there, but should be nice and even. There should be no visible scratches now. I think we're at the stage where we're going to be polishing next. Now we're done with the 3000, off with the 3000, and on with the orange buffing pad. This is the final stage. Where we will be using some of that rubbing compound that comes with the kit. I'm not expecting to use much of this rubbing compound because I mean, it's very smooth already, so I wouldn't expect much needed there. So just squeeze a pea-sized amount, not much. This is there we go. And I just like to, I tend to like to spread this out before we get started, so we don't get polish flying off the pad. Okay. Yes. Okay, it's the first pass, so let's just buff that off with the dry cloth and see how we're looking. As you can see, that is a considerable improvement from the previous stage, and we're now getting close to completion on this. So as you can see, we're now getting very close to the end. Okay, right, just get it dumped off a little bit so we don't burn the plastic. Okay, after a little while that will dry off. Once it's dried off, I would stop and buff it off with a dry cloth to see how you're getting on. And as you can see, that's pretty much done. Very smooth now. I mean, this is not a completely dry cloth, so I will give that a final buff with a dry cloth, and I think we'll see a bit more shine, but that is I would say done. Okay, now that we've finished buffing with the compound, I would recommend sealing it with some kind of paint sealant. I'm using water glim. You can choose any paint sealant you like. This is just to seal the surface of the plastic in the same way that this would seal the paint. Once it's been compounded and polished, you would seal the plastic with this stuff. Same effect. Rub it on and leave it to dry, and then buff it off until it's nice and shiny bright. But this is just to make sure that all the hard work you've done isn't just wasted. Should hopefully make that shine last a bit longer.